You knew this was coming. Welcome back to another episode of Is It Good? I'm your host, and today we'll be talking about, obviously, Castlevania, as the title and the thumbnail suggests. And we did the trailer for this video, actually, which we don't do a lot of trailers, but yeah, it was one of those anime or TV series of interest. So I thought, I was excited. I was excited for the trailer. I was excited for season two, and trust me, I don't regret that excitement because I watched season two last night all at once, and yeah, I just had some thoughts. I wanted to share them, especially about the ending and even a possible season three. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so right away, the designs of the seemingly is Egyptian black characters are the same as Alucard's design, or Alucard and the other characters of his ilk. And this is my first point because it's something that I mentioned in the trailer video, but it's also a peeve that I had for the first season where Annette, it seemed that she was being animated by a different or drawn or designed by a different studio, whatever the case may be. And so her design seemed like it just seemed like a different design to what Richter had, for instance, the Belmont and the other characters. Um, so like Maria, so it was a P for me in the first season, and I was like, all right, I'm hoping that they fix that. Because in truth, outside of that, and I think we had some qualms about the story not being as strong as it could have been. Um, yeah, outside of those things, it was a good season one. Like there were some really good moments, some favorite moments actually from season one in terms of animation and stuff. So I had hopes for it, and saw when I saw that, you know, the characters, the black characters seemed like the design are very much the same of Alucard, and because you could see like, he was the one that was confronting the vampires in Egypt in the beginning scene of the first episode. So yeah, it was good to see that right away. I was happy to see that there was more kind of like uniformity in the design. Um, and I was looking forward to seeing if the same um, would have been the case with Annette, because I know Annette seemed like the character that they were, how would you say this? It seemed like the character that they were offloading, or it seemed like the character that they were using another artist to design, an artist of color, which I'm glad. And it seemed like because even when we do end up seeing Annette, her design is a lot more, not let me not say polished, but it's more in line with the design that again we have for characters like Richter and Maria. So that was great to see. It was great to have that kind of resolved from the beginning. I'm not gonna say that the design or the animation was perfect. I'll leave that for those who are critics of that sort of thing. But I enjoyed it. They start off with some real strong animation and fight scenes. It's almost as if they're trying to say, "Yo, like this is what you guys know and love us for." In fact, most of us who came to Castlevania Nocturne and you know Nocturne season two are fans of that first Castlevania anime with the original Dracula, and the animation on that is just excellent. It's horror and supernatural, and I don't expect everyone to be able to look at that animation and say it's beautiful because it's horror and it's horror monsters and vampires and nightmare creatures. But let's be real, the design on that anime, you know, the animation, it was just really excellent. So most of us are fans of it from that time. And I think when they kind of start off with these strong animation fight scenes, it's almost as if they're trying to remind us that this is why we're here. And I was happy to kind of see that. And it was harkening back to a lot of the original Castlevania with Dracula and with the one with Trevor and Alucard and Cypher as well later on, the following seasons. Um, but yeah, I mean, up to that point, I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is still episode one at the time. It was like after 12 in the night. The time I was watching this. So yeah, they start off real strong, and I'm happy for them. Alucard is annoyed that he kills everyone, and the sarcophagus is empty, which I thought that was interesting to note because he was like, "You made me kill all of you, and there's nothing fucking here." And I'm like, bro, you gotta understand, like, to me, it tracks culturally because for Egyptians, it's not just about the corpse, you know. The burial place is sacred, the grounds is sacred, the rituals themselves are sacred, and of course, in this instance, they still had the blood of Sekhmet, which in the anime, the blood of a god is still very much sacred. So yeah, I thought that point was funny and interesting. And the timing of those kind of comedic quips, it seems like they're trying to kind of bring it back to. I think they kind of for me, if I had to guess, I would say they probably revisited the original Castlevania with Dracula and Trevor and Cypher, and they kind of picked out the things that work the best. So I think they kind of revised even the timing of some of the comedic quips on this are a lot better and a lot more reminiscent of that original Dracula anime for me, the original Castlevania anime. So yeah, that was good to see, and I think it's good to note as well that they kind of went back to the drawing board. Places I've seen that before is also Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. I think they went back for season two, the timing and these kinds of things. As a writer, I can always tell when the timing is good, and I can always kind of sense the style of the timing based on if it's something that I've watched a lot before. And I watched Lord of the Rings, or the trilogy of films, a lot. So I really have a grasp on the concept of the timing. And when I checked the Rings of Power season two, I saw that they went back and tried to adopt some of the style and the cadence of the timing from the Lord of the Rings trilogy films. So I think they probably did the same thing with Castlevania. They kind of went back to the original and said, let's see how we can kind of how we can tighten up the story, because that was one of the criticisms for the story as well. So, because yeah, some of the dialogue, like it wasn't as great as it could have been for season one. So I'm glad that they kind of went back to where they hit the success and kind of pulled from some of that. This season seemed to be exploring the idea of vampires not just being vampires and night creatures, not just being animals. It seems to be exploring the idea that they're not just driven by lust, that they can love, and in essence, by the virtue of love, have humanity or be redeemed. And this is something that we see Marie struggling with as her mom is turned into a vampire and she's kind of trying to navigate that space. So I think that was an interesting theme that they're exploring. Since the very first kind of few episodes of season two. I like the way that they brought in Drolta's backstory. She was one of the standout characters from season one in terms of things like dialogue, design peak, animation peak. She was one of the favorites for a lot of people. And so to see them bring her back and like develop her backstory without any announcement, it was great seeing that and great seeing her develop and become a contender for the category of antagonist, which later on she fully embodies. So, yeah, that was interesting. We also saw that Mephisto, or as they said in the thing, Mephistopheles is canon to the Castlevania universe. For those who are big Marvel fans, we know that Mephisto is a big character in the Marvel universe. So to kind of see that he's canon here is pretty interesting, or if you want to call it that. But they did all rocks who called him that, also who identified him as that, also said Old Man Coyote. So we'll see, and then it plays into that whole theme of different mythologies and you know there being kind of like one myth in a sense. Joseph Campbell harkening back to that again, where you kind of see that some of these characters they're portrayed in different myths as different gods or different figures or different saints or heroes. So I think it's probably a similar thing when Olrox mentioned Old Man Coyote, which is a big figure in the Native American mythology pantheon. So that was interesting. Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of see what comes from that. That guy. It kind of seems like he'll be nurturing Maria's mother. Went away to kind of find her own. I guess whatever it was that she said, her own path or whatever. And yeah, boy, he was the one that was kind of guiding the Forge Master and where the power of the Forge Master came from. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops in season two. Um, and then yeah, it was interesting to also see the disunity between vampires and night creatures and night creatures and night creatures um, of the Forge. And this actually happened after Maria killed her father and removed the single unifying force in that equation because her father was the one that was uniting Elizabeth and her vampire forces with the night creatures. And yeah, and later on, when he resurrected Drolta, he was, Drolta kind of built her own faction within the night creatures. So we kind of got to see later on that there was kind of like a fight between those who felt some kind of way when the Forge Master passed, the night creatures, and we kind of saw them kind of butting heads in the final round with the night creatures that the night creature faction that Drota kind of built up after she was resurrected. So that was interesting to kind of see. I like the ancestral plane. Um, I'm really glad that they did it well because I really just dislike to see, especially as a person of color, I really dislike to see them attempt to do things that have to do with cultures of color, cultures from people of color, and then don't do it well, or it's corny, or it's cringe. So I'm really, really happy to see that it wasn't cringe. Um, it was good to watch. I didn't feel any cringe at any moment. The dialogue wasn't horrible. It was simple. It was what it needed to be. I'm not saying it couldn't have been better for sure, but it was good. And I give it a pass for that. Papa Legba had absolutely no dialogue in, in this entire season, even though we saw him show up quite a few times in the initial stages. Found that interesting. And it was good to see Ogun at the Forge. His character was really good as well. And trust me, like that machete drip was fire, bro. He was cutting through dimensions and everything. I'm like, bro, like we need to see more of that. Like bring that nigga back in season three, please. That was crazy. So yeah, and then the real Sekhmet, her design as well as like Superfly, like I enjoyed seeing just the colors is super colorful, super well drawn. I love the yellow and the orange and the indigo and blue schemes. Like those were just like very vibrant. The eyeshadow, the whole thing. Um, I just really love that, and yeah, the fight between the three parts of Sekhmet's soul now was also super interesting. Um, yeah, sure I could say more there, but I don't want to spoil it too much. Um, the moment when it's revealed that Elizabeth has two ancient Egyptian god souls inside her, essentially. I mean, it's one god, but it's three souls. So she has two, and they're like Oh, but she has two ancient Egyptian god cards. I mean, not god cards. Shout out to Yu-Gi-Oh! That was slightly intentional, but not. Um, God souls. That was an interesting battle. So yeah. Let me tell you something, bro. This was actually one of my favorite parts of the entire thing. That family Kamehameha, Dragonfire, rainbow combo between Just and Maria and Richter. Listen, let me tell you something, bro. And they're pulling, they pull, trust me, like they're pulling from other anime, and that's why I'm like, yo. And then they make mention too of Japan and Japanese culture and the Japanese people as well. So I'm imagining that they're pulling a lot of references from the anime space. It is an anime newsflash, yes, but that's not something that they're always like whatever referencing heavily, especially when it's produced in the states, or in Hollywood. So it was really good to see that Kamehameha, that combo, like the principle, the theory and the principle of it, the philosophy of it was like super dope. The story elements of it was super dope. That they combined magics in that moment. Um, but the visual of it was the animation was also like trust me, bro. Like, let's not talk about Castlevania with anything else. Season 2 Nocturne. No other anime right now. Like, let's just be real. Like, and then, you know, Alucard going full on vampire versus Drolta was like super dope as well because we got to see him back out all his powers and then combine powers on top of powers, which it was great to see because it reminded me of Dracula. You know, him being at just this high level of sorcery where he's combining all these magics and creating these super ridiculously powerful attacks and spells. And we kind of saw Alucard do that as he was tapping into his full vampire nature, against Drota, and that was super great. Drota's speech in the end as she's fighting Sekhmet and losing, I thought it's what you wanted, bro. Listen, you said it. She said it about 5 times. And the fifth time, I'm about like, yo, it's obviously not what she wanted. Like that's the first thing she been saying since she possessed Annette's body. So yeah. And then my favorite moment from this was that lightsaber and that DBZ reference with Richter when he takes Alucard's sword. Yo, don't let me. I don't want to break my setup, but that's what it calls for. Like I don't want to get too extra, but that scene with the sword where he's just like you guys have to understand the principle of why it's so crazy. It's not just the visual. Visual is like immaculate. You know what I'm saying? It's like a dessert. It's like the cherry on top. But the idea that he's combining is to be able to combine all these different elements of magic, lightning, elemental magics, lightning, fire, ice. You know what I'm saying? Flames. I did say flames, fire. So the fact that he's combining all these different elements into one, these different elements that are completely separate in the physical realm, not to mention the magical space, the fact that he's managed to combine all of them on this one sword and to create this one blade, it shows the level of mastery that he's come to in his magic power, which is great. Like that's great development. It's like great payoff as well, in this season. So that was like the peak, the crowning moment when he splits her in two. And we have that DBZ reference where we see the screen split apart from Richter's view, and I'm like, you can't buy stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? You can't buy it. I mean, they bought it because they bought the script people, they bought the animation people, they bought everything. Hollywood, Netflix, you guys bought it. But I'm just saying, you can't half do something like that. It has to be well done to be appreciated. And it was well done. You feel me? So, yeah, that's my main thing, for Castlevania Nocturne season 2. I'm interested to see, my theories for the ending and the new season. I'm interested to kind of see how sorry how this relationship between this Mephistopheles or this old man coyote and Maria's mother, the vampire, is going to play out. It seems like she's going to be another villain in season three, and yeah, he himself might come from beneath the shadows. He might not just be a puppeteering villain or antagonist in season three. Hopefully, they renew for season three because that would be dope to see. And then we're gonna see obviously Richter come back. We're gonna see Alucard. He's gonna be with them. We're gonna see Richter and Annette's journey in Saint-Domingue. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that word right. Spanish people don't kill me, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It'd be great. I'll be honest. There are a couple of things that I didn't like. The romance between Richter and Annette. We could have done without that. Like they could have just as easily been friends. And the story still would have worked just as well. Maybe it's part of me is because I'm colored, or I'm a person of color. I don't particularly like to see, not like to see. I don't like to see it if it doesn't need to be the case. I feel like if they were gonna do a romantic story between them, it should have been developed more. I didn't need it. It wasn't developed to the point where I felt like, yeah, we need to see them together. But both of them are powerful wizards, so I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how that plays out. I'm looking forward to see how they handle that rebellion. I hope they don't make it cringe, you know, because it's like black people's story. But yeah, looking forward to season three, and trust me, that ending, it was good. It ended from like it ended from like episode one, to be quite honest. But the fact they brought it to episode two and gave us the what you would call the payoff for almost everything that they were setting up, um, it was a really good ending, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they come with next. Castlevania Supremacy. I don't want to hear anything else. So far, January 2025, best anime so far. Like, I don't want to hear anything else. And yeah, it's been fun so far. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please drop the like, the share. We appreciate all this. As you can see, we are a small channel. We're just starting out. We're growing, so every little bit helps. Please, yeah. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.